So, this is probably going to be a little bit of a ramble. Um, that's kind of what YouTube is for, right? Trying to put your thoughts here in maybe a bit of an unorganized type of fashion. And I feel like those are the kind of videos that I enjoy and maybe other people enjoy as well because it feels very authentic. It doesn't feel manufactured and all tightened up um, in a way that you're trying to gain likes or views or anything like that. I just felt really compelled to start speaking. And a big part of this is because just some time ago, and I think many of us are aware of this, a man was shot and killed for his speech. And whatever side of the political spectrum you are, it doesn't matter if you disagree with him, agree with him, any of those sorts of things. I think that this really hit a lot of people hard. Um, and I think it made things feel very real, at least for me. Um, I haven't paid attention to politics in many years. Um, I kind of became obsessed with it at one time in my life, and I just didn't feel like it really helped me become the best person that I could be by solely focusing in this one box. But I think that we live in a world where I think we almost should be talking about politics more. We should be trying to have conversations with people from many different perspectives and being able to share our opinions to hopefully evolve into something better. And when I had heard the news that Charlie Kirk was killed, I personally I never really followed him that much. I don't really care for a lot of his opinions. I feel like he kind of is in this conservative debate culture, which I think tries to make itself appear very intellectually sound and superior when a lot of it is just kind of debating with people who are sort of, like the low hanging apples. A lot of people who don't really know much about politics, they kind of know just from maybe watching the news or maybe discussing with friends. They're not adapted to, I guess, the rhetoric and style and technique that a debater would be able to use. I mean, and I think there's a lot of dishonesty that certainly happens when you have some of these people who say, "Oh, debate me." I think there's a lot of times when people bring up sound arguments and then they just try to sort of work around them in any ways. But I mean, there's a lot of problems I think with this whole debate scene when it comes to politics. I think in order for this to be effective, you really need people who are, at the same level. I think you need to have people who can use rhetoric to some degree as opposed to just having a lot of knowledge about a certain subject. You need people that are persuasive, people who are able to, really spar back and forth. But at the same time, I think what we saw, I mean, a lot of this started back in 2016, 2017. It's kind of like the whole debate bros scene, I guess, where people were kind of, getting, going at each other and going online and talking about, a lot of different issues. And I think that we kind of saw that this idea sort of burn itself out, that it wasn't really changing a lot of minds. I mean, maybe it was, I don't know. I feel like a lot of people got their minds changed for the worse as opposed to really looking towards something, like I said, more intellectually sound rather than just like a lot of propaganda talking points. But I think that we saw that like it was really just used as a technique to reinforce a side. And, I think that a lot of people on the left missed out on engaging with this because I think that it could have maybe opposed just one little box of propaganda. But yeah, I mean, it's really hard to tell what could have been better about all of this. But I think that, like I said, I think that a lot of this is exhausted. And I think we realize that unfortunately a lot of people are stuck in their ways. And when it comes to communication, at least on that stage, it's really not the best avenue to really be having these kinds of conversations. I think the best way to have these conversations is really just within your friend group, or even within just who you meet day to day. I mean, don't bombard people with political conversation, but if it comes up, I think that, we should be able to talk about these things. But anyways, when I heard the news that this man was killed, it was definitely unexpected. I mean, like I said, I haven't been following a lot of this recently, so I don't know how big of a reach he had from a political standpoint. I mean, I knew he had a lot of reach in terms of his rhetoric. But he was probably not somebody that I expected to be targeted like this. And I think that's why it hits so different than maybe if it was, like maybe different than somebody who was like an actual political leader. I feel like there's a bit more sympathy with somebody like Charlie Kirk because he was just a guy. He wasn't in office. As far as I know, I don't think he was like super rich. I mean, I'm sure he was making some money off of Turning Point and the organization to be able to fund all of this. But I mean, it kind of felt like, at least from my point of view, that he was like kind of one of us. He was somebody who was just out there talking. And to be kind of targeted like that was just really shocking. And I think the footage and everything is really tough to watch too. But yeah, he was kind of representative of sort of the common man in some degree, I think. Just like a lot of these other YouTube commenters who would potentially be targeted. I mean, I think that they're not people that you see really hold any power or like are in any sort of structured kind of thing. They're just kind of like like randos, I guess. But yeah, it became kind of scary. I mean, I think that we've been seeing limitations on speech, I think, for many years now. A lot of it started in 2016, and a lot of uprise to, I think, a lot of the more aggressive rhetoric of Trump and maybe more Republicans who were talking. But you really saw a rise of kind of radicalism with all of this. Some things which I personally don't think really needed to be radical or really seemed like they were radical, but you definitely saw that the debate or the argument was really in a whole different sphere. If you were in kind of the more moderate playing ground, it's like you were sort of boring, or you were just sort of like not really participating, I guess is the best way to put it. You were sort of on the sidelines while the game was happening. And you were watching it, and you were sort of, maybe trying to be like that sports fan who's like, yeah, get the ball here, get the ball there, what are you doing, blah, blah, while everybody else was actually playing the game. So it's like, I feel like, yeah, being a moderate is like being on the bench and on the sidelines, kind of fanboying all over the teams. And I think that it's really important to kind of see what's going on. I mean, I think that the discussion is no longer, I think, within the moderate playing field. I think a lot of people maybe feel like, oh, we just want to go back, 10, 20 years ago when everything felt so normal and we could just, talk to each other and everything was fine. And I just don't think that that is realistic. I mean, I think after this event and, even after the attempt on Trump's life, uh, I don't know, I think it was a year ago or something like that. But, anyways, that attempt, like, it really showed the radicalism in the air with a lot of people. And I think it should be obvious. I'm not saying that the radicalism that we're seeing is, like, that you need to participate in is this violent radicalism. I just think that that is a sign of kind of where we're at as a country. And yeah, like I said, where the conversation is going, I guess. Um, it's it's really outside the sphere of, I guess, party politics. And the parties that are becoming the most successful are really the ones who are playing on the more radical side. But anyways, yeah, it was really overwhelming. It was really shocking, and it really made me think about, I don't know, just life and what this all means and everything that's going on. And I just feel like more people should try to have conversations and try to speak with people. Um, I don't know, like, I guess I'm drawing a blank here with the motivation here, but it just really turned everything upside down. I feel like to be on the sidelines is just not really acceptable. Um, and I don't think that you need to be out there being an activist or whatnot, but I feel like I have a lot of things to say, not just politically. I think mostly a lot of what I have to say is more philosophical or more about ideas. Like I had said previously, the political sphere, I think, kind of limits you um, to some degree because you're not you're not seeing this other plane of being. You're almost taking, I think you're almost taking the humanity out of this. I mean, this incident really took the humanity, I think, out of politics as well. I mean, the fact that somebody was willing to, go out and kill somebody for their beliefs. And I think what really disturbed me the most was just the fact that I saw people within my social media circle. I mean, not many on, at least in mine, but I saw people like justifying this in some way. Justifying, they may not have been outright celebrating it, but justifying that this was a good thing or that it was okay to feel good about somebody being killed like this because they had hateful opinions or they had the wrong opinions or something like that. And it just really disgusted me. Um, and I think, in a way, like, unfortunately, it makes you lose a bit of your humanity too, because you're like, if these people who are on this other side think like this, and I think that, we've seen a lot of aggressive, I mean, I don't know, it does happen on both sides, but I feel like there's a feeling that's different when I see a lot of the rhetoric coming from more like leftists, um, and like maybe more progressive leftists, where it just like feels so ugly. I feel like when I look at right wingers and some of the stuff that they say that's kind of outrageous, I kind of look at it as like, I don't know, like just stupid or cringe or I don't know, like, it doesn't really bother me as much as when I see some of it from the left. And it just like made me like feel like, okay, these, like, these people who are out here celebrating this, it's like if I'm having the wrong opinions, or if I'm speaking on something that they are going to disagree with, it's like, okay, like, it's like you're gonna be completely ostracized. I mean, at this point, it became violent, right? So it's like, okay, now the danger is violence, and it's not like this is the first time people on the right have had the threat of violence. Not as much with being killed, but certainly we saw, various rallies and things like that, and speakers who were on campuses and things like that that were shut down, and big riots that were happening to protest, right wing speakers and all of that. Um, and I'm not I don't even consider myself like conservative or right wing or any kinds of things. I feel like I just want to take on a lot of the best ideas, but it's like in today's world, if you have like an opinion that is against one little thing on one other side, it's just like, okay, you're automatically lumped in with everybody else. So it's kind of lose lose. If you end up having an opinion on one of these hot button topics that doesn't fit this narrative, you are basically like trash. At least that's kind of what it feels like. And I don't want to believe that, but it certainly feels that way, like I said, from like a lot of the ugly rhetoric and a lot of the just disgusting things that I have seen. And yeah, I just have, I've always felt that people should stand up for truth and what is right. And I think that with this incident, it hits upon a real danger of that. A real danger in today's society is like, not only is the danger being totally ostracized from human connection, you have the threat of getting fired for your job, from your job. Um, it's like now, okay, now it's like you might get shot. I mean, it's probably very unlikely, but it's just like, okay, now the danger really is like, okay, people could really want to harm you, and that is becoming more and more real today. Especially, like I said, if you gain enough influence and enough people come to hear you speak, you could be just this common person just talking, and somebody would want to have it out against you. But yeah, just need to regain my thoughts for a moment. Yeah, I was having conversations with people at various social events, people that I met. And it's funny, like, things would get political, and I kind of would get a little excited. This was, before all this happened. I would get kind of excited, and I'd be like, all right, I want to see people really hash it out. I want to see people really, talk about these things, and like in a good way, like, and not an ugly way. Because I feel like ultimately, like, that's what I really want. I want people to have conversations. I want us to engage in the freedom to debate each other, the freedom to speak with each other, like I think how the Constitution intended it. Um, but I think I just feel more and more like I just feel like it's just kind of a fantasy, I guess. That unfortunately, like I said, if you are of one opinion, you are just going to be completely lumped in that one side and head to head. And it's like, after I saw all these disgusting comments, and after I saw people get fired for some of the things they said, now some of them were, I mean, I think that there were some legitimate criticisms that were not really that offensive that people got fired for. But at the same time, I just wanted to check. It looked like the video stopped. At the same time, I don't know. I had a hard time feeling bad for people who got fired for all this, and I had a hard time really standing up for them, because it's just like, where were they when other people were getting fired for, I mean, stupid stuff like participating in a rally or voting, or I don't know, having an opinion that they disagreed with. I mean, how many people who got fired and never got stood up for at that point? But now it's like, oh, because it's happening on this side, now it's a big problem and we need to protect freedom of speech. It's just like, okay, like there's a lot of hypocrisy there. It's like, okay, what exactly are we defending here? Are we defending the like horrific things that people and ugly things that people said? Are we trying to protect, I guess, the ability to have conversations? It's like, okay, like where is this really going? It doesn't feel like it comes from an honest place. It just comes from like, oh, we're getting shut down, so we should, we need to be able to uphold this right to speech and all of this. I don't know. It's just all very silly, I think. But anyways, I don't know if I came to any conclusion there, but I just think that, I feel two opposing sides within myself. One where, let's have conversations, let's debate, let's talk to each other. Another side where I just feel like there is no avenue for that, or that avenue has kind of passed, and, I don't really think that I'm going to change anybody's mind, or we're going to change anybody's mind, but I just think that there's a lot of value to just having that conversation with somebody. Like, I think it helps us recognize the humanity in everyone else, and maybe that might limit these violent actions or might limit the hostility that's in the air. I really don't know. I just find it exciting. I find it exciting to talk with people about these things, to talk about politics, philosophy, ideas, and get into debate, but like have fun with it and enjoy it. And then the other side where, like I said, it's just kind of like, okay, the tables have sort of turned, and it just doesn't seem like if your opinions lean right in any way, it doesn't seem like you are really going to be given a chance to even have a conversation at all. And so I wanted to just kind of like go into, so I started reading Thomas More's Utopia. I just read the introduction, and I've only gotten a little bit into book one. And in the introduction, there was an interesting like conversation that's happening. And Thomas More is one of the characters. He kind of presents himself into the book. And then there's another character who is a fictional person. I can't remember his name. But these characters they have like opposing sides, and they're almost debating or talking with each other in some degree. And one of the topics, and well, before I get into that, so the introduction kind of talked about Thomas More, and Thomas More was very close with, Henry, I think the 7th or 8th or something like that. He's very close with the, English royalty, and very close with other, members who had power. And so he kind of towed this line. And really, this book, it's really hard to tell what his actual opinion is. Is him that he presents himself in the book his opinion, or is the fictional character his opinion? Is he trying to, I don't know, just present arguments and maybe see what comes out of it? Who really knows? But he's presenting these things in a way that is cautious. He he doesn't present it in his own clear thoughts, because if he does, there's the likelihood of being called a heretic and persecution and all of these different things. Um, yes, there is a real danger, I think, that's happening in today's society, but I mean, then it's like you didn't have the ability to really talk against the government, or, talk about things that didn't go along with the church, or at least the royalties, and I believe the Vatican was established at that time, but don't quote me on that. But, the clergy, I guess, how they interpreted various ideas and things. And so you had to be kind of sly. And I think the debate that's happening between these two characters is, if you stand for something, or if you want to express something, should you try to be more calculating, try to be more careful about the things that you say so that you don't upset public opinion or upset the wrong people? Or should you follow your true passion and, express yourself in a way that puts you in very dangerous situations? And it got me thinking about this situation here. Could Charlie Kirk have sort of towed the line and worked maybe behind the scenes within the party and, got his opinions out there, as opposed to really being so forward and out there with this? And it's a hard thing to choose. Do you want that safety and security, or do you feel like you're willing to risk it all? I guess I'll conclude with the story of Thomas More. So like I said, Thomas More, he was very close with a lot of people who were in power. He sort of towed the line. He wrote this book in a very cautious way. He followed his duties to some degree, with what the people in power had wanted him to do. And then there was a moment where I guess he could no longer toe the line. At the end of his life, he stood up against King Henry and didn't recognize his power over the clergy. He felt that only God could, be the one who has this sort of authority. The state could not have this authority over the clergy because of this religious element. And there's a lot more to it, but he was imprisoned, and up until the very end, he was given many chances to support the king. They were actually friends. They were close with each other. And he stood his ground to the very end. He would not give in. And so I think that there was a moment where the passion sort of overtook him. He could no longer sit still, and he could no longer sort of calculate with all of this. And I wonder if that is really possible in today's society. Is it possible to sit on the sidelines and calculate and try to toe the line and be careful while, everything is happening around you? Or is it just and right to stand up and just speak? You don't really even have to support anybody or anything. Just try to bring ideas out there. Try to bring more thought into the conversation. Don't talk about politics if you don't want to talk about politics. Talk about something else. But I think we live in a very political world, and this is the conversation.